Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the latest instalment of the International Sleep Charities Book Club. I'm Charlie Alton. I'm here as your introducer, as founder of Sleep Hubs and also one of the co-founders of the International Sleep Charity. And it's my very great pleasure to introduce Dr. Neil Stanley, sleep researcher and top-selling author of How to Sleep Well. I've personally had the pleasure of working alongside Neil and can vouch that on top of his decades of sleep research, he retains a passion and an encyclopedic knowledge of all things sleep. And on top of all of that, I found him to be immensely practical with a very good can-do attitude. He'll certainly have an opinion, so I think we're in for a treat. And just in terms of structure for today, so Neil's going to speak. He's going to speak from memory. There aren't any slides, but at the end of it, there will be a Q&A session. If you would like to ask any questions, all you've got to do there is raise your hands digitally, and we'll unmute you and you can speak directly to Neil. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to the main man himself. Thank you very much, Dr. Stanley.
Thanks, Charlie. It's a real pleasure to have the ability to talk to you this evening. I'm not using slides mainly because I spend my life presenting slides and I'm bored of presenting slides. So nothing I'm going to say needs slides. I'm not going to treat you like an idiot that you need to see pretty pictures. So I'm here to talk about How to Sleep Well, my fabulously brilliant book that I wrote a couple of years ago. What was interesting about How to Sleep Well is I've been involved in sleep research for the last 39 years. I initially started work at the Institute of Aviation Medicine alongside the Royal Air Force, looking at things like aircrew workload, jet lag, shift work, medicines you can take to sleep well and fly safely the next day. In the early 90s, I moved to the University of Surrey, where I created and ran the world's largest clinical trial sleep laboratory. So it was a 24-bed unit looking at the effects of medication on sleep. So I've been involved in about 250 clinical trials. And many of the drugs that have some effect on sleep, I've had a small, or in some cases a large hand in the development of those drugs. I have worked clinically in London, Copenhagen, and most recently out in Oslo. But although I've done an awful lot of media, I was one of the first people to talk about sleep in the media back in the early 90s. I never felt the need to write a book because, to be honest, most of the information that we give people about sleep, we've been giving for hundreds of years. And although people tart it up and try and present it up as something new, actually it's not. You may have seen the piece of advice that you should get 8 hours sleep. Well, nobody in the last 600 years of any repute has ever said that you need to get 8 hours sleep. Nobody's ever said that. So that's one of the great myths, but it's regurgitated time and time again. The temperature of the bedroom, you'll see sleep experts say that it should be 16 to 18 degrees. And you think, wow, that must be based on some science. Well, it's not. Actually, the earliest version of that I can find from 1869. So it's been around for 100 years or so. And so I never felt that I could write something that would add anything new, because I don't want to take money from people for writing common sense or what they could get anywhere else. But I was approached by Wiley and they said, do you want to write a sleep book? That we have a gap in our catalogue. Do you want to write a sleep book? You've got 8 weeks to write it, and you can write anything you like. So I did. And essentially, my book is an antidote to all the nonsense that is written about sleep. And this is key because plenty of people publish books about sleep. Plenty of people appear in the media. Most of these people have absolutely no training, experience or knowledge on sleep at all. Many of them are health journalists. Some of them are just complete cowboys. And so there's a lot of nonsense being written. Because you don't have to have any experience to set yourself up as a sleep expert. And indeed, many of the people you'll see in the media quoted as sleep experts have no experience, no qualification in sleep at all. And so I thought it was important that I knock down some of these ridiculous ideas that are perpetrated. Things like you must have 8 hours sleep. The biggest issue that we have at the moment, of course, is the belief that you'll die or go mad if you don't get a good night's sleep. And this really came about with the publication of a particular book in 2017 by a particular author. And the book is still in the charts, in the shops. Somehow, we have to wonder why. And it was advertised on every underground station in London, and there's a huge amount of money put behind this book. And basically it spends 500 pages telling you that we're in the middle of a sleep crisis and that you'll go mad or die if you don't sleep enough. This is what people like myself call complete nonsense. There is no evidence for a sleep crisis. A paper came out last year showing that we actually sleep more now than we did in 1974. Now, most of you listening to this won't actually remember 1974, but 1974 was grim. We'd just come out of the 3-day week. TV went off at 10:30, pubs closed at 10:30, late night shopping was 6 o'clock on a Thursday night. We didn't have mobile phones. We had one television in the living room, and nobody rang your home phone after 9 o'clock. And yet, all the things that are blamed on poor sleep, that we would have poor sleep now, exist now, and yet we're sleeping more. Blue light from our phones, 24-hour shopping, the internet, all of these things exist now, and yet still we're sleeping more. People say, oh, we sleep less than we did 100 years ago. No, we don't, because we don't have any evidence of how we slept 100 years ago. The data comes from a couple of papers about children. We're not children. So we don't have adult data from 100 years ago. We don't have adult data from 50 years ago. Actually, the last time we had the first time that we have any decent information about sleep is within the last 20 years, where a big survey was done. So this idea that we're in a crisis is a nonsense. This idea that you'll go mad or die if you don't get a good night's sleep is a nonsense. In 1916, that's 16, not 60. In 1916, there's 2 papers published by an American doctor saying the biggest cause of insomnia is being told that you'll die or go mad if you don't get enough sleep. And yet 101 years later, a supposedly well-regarded sleep expert and professor publishes a book that tells you you'll go mad or die if you don't get enough sleep. And if you look, there are associations between poor sleep and increased morbidity, mortality. But they are associations. They are not causations. And if you drill down into the information and you look at what actually is happening, most of the data comes from America, and the people who are having shorter lives and poorer health outcomes because of short sleep are the ones who have what could be adequately described as pretty rubbish lives. They're the poor, they're the African Americans, they're the Latinos at the bottom of society. They're the people who have poor sleep, but they have poor diet, they have poor housing conditions, they don't have jobs, they don't have money. That is the thing that is killing them. It is not poor sleep. So the idea that we should sleep to live longer is false. we should sleep to live better tomorrow, but we're not going to live to 150 if we get sleep. That is a nonsense. And yet this nonsense is put out there. Why is that nonsense put out there? Well, one, it sells books. Two, it gives you headlines. Three, it gets you to do TED Talks. And four, and most importantly, it means you can monetize sleep. Sleep has now become a commodity, and there is so much rubbish being sold for stupid prices in order for you to get a good night's sleep. A robot that you hug for £600. Sleep trackers, which are completely inaccurate. There was a study that was just published over the Christmas period, looking at the 7 leading sleep trackers that are out there, comparing them, showing that in order to, their accuracy measuring sleep is around 78%. Their accuracy at measuring sleep onset is around 34%. They cannot measure deep, light, deep, or REM sleep, and yet they are advertised like that. People believe it. People go to their doctors saying, I have insomnia because of my Fitbit or my Garmin. So people have made sleep seem terrifying in order to sell you a solution for your sleep. And so they can charge a lot of money for it. Look, Google have just bought Fitbit. Why? Because they're going to do something around sleep in order to sell. Apple have moved into the sleep space. Why? Because it's something to sell. It may surprise you to know that Fitbit have actually been sued in America for false advertising about how accurate their sleep tracking is. And yet you'll see people talk about sleep tracking. So my book basically just cuts through all of this nonsense and tells you what you need to do, and there's a whole list of 303 things that you don't need to do, and that's just a partial thing. So it's about thinking about your sleep. And what's the best way to get a good night's sleep? People always ask for 10 top tips for getting a good night's sleep. There aren't 10 top tips for getting a good night's sleep. Sleep hygiene, which everybody talks about. Oh, do sleep hygiene and you'll sleep better. Sleep hygiene has been shown not to have any benefit for insomnia on its own in and of itself. So there is not 10 tips. There is 3 overriding principles. One, a bedroom that is conducive to sleep. So dark, quiet, cool, comfortable. Simple as that. 2, a relaxed body. 3, most importantly, a quiet mind. You can't get to sleep unless you have a quiet mind. So how do you achieve a quiet mind? Well, I don't know. I have no idea how you achieve a quiet mind. I know what I do. I read every night before I go to bed. Whatever time I get into bed, I will always read. But that's not what I recommend for you to do. I would recommend you to find something that works for you, whatever that may be. Is that drinking chamomile tea, or drinking Horlicks, or doing yoga, or practicing mindfulness meditation, or listening to Pink Floyd really loudly? Don't care, as long as you do it and as long as you enjoy doing it. And that is it. That is all that needs to be said about sleep. Everything else outside of those 3 overarching principles is just guff that isn't necessary. Oh, paint your bedroom this color. Why? You've got your eyes closed and it's dark. You won't see the color. Tidy your pants up because that will cause you stress. If you are stressed because of your pants being untidy, then seriously, you don't have much wrong with your life, and you should actually get a grip if your pants cause you that much anxiety. Buy a robot. Buy some essential oils. Smell this, do that. It's all designed for you to spend your money on the hope that you'll get a better night's sleep. But I've just told you how to get a better night's sleep for free. It will work, and it is the basis. So there are thousands of sleep tips out there. If you follow me on Twitter, which is Dr. Neil Stanley, all as one word, I publish a sleep tip a day on Twitter. The first 500 were good, they were mine. Then after that, they became a bit rubbish because I stole them off the internet, and they're all labeled daft sleep tip from the internet. I'm up to 2,870 something daily sleep tips. And as I say, they're rubbish. They're completely rubbish. Eat a banana before bed. Why? Oh, it's got tryptophan in. Well, anything that has protein has tryptophan in, and eating a banana before bed is disgusting. Why not eat a white bread turkey sandwich, which has much more tryptophan in? It'll still do nothing to help you sleep, but it's at least nicer than a banana. So there's all this advice which is causing people to be anxious. So I must get 8 hours sleep. Well, yeah, if you don't get 8 hours sleep, you somehow failed, and therefore you've got a sleep problem. But you might not need 8 hours sleep. Sleep need is like height, it's genetically determined, and we're all individuals. So there are some people who only need 4 hours sleep. They can sleep perfectly well in 4 hours. They get all the benefit of sleep they need. There is no negative health consequences. And there are some people who need to sleep 11 hours in order to get the same benefit. So it's about getting the right amount of sleep for you as an individual, not a magic number of hours. And what is interesting is that we only ever concentrate on short sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you'll die or go mad. But if you look at the data for various illnesses, specifically female heart disease, sleeping more than you need is 3 times more dangerous than sleeping less than you need. But nobody talks about sleeping more because, of course, you can't monetize it. You can't make something to make you sleep less. It's very easy to sleep less. Just switch the blooming alarm on. So you can't monetize it. So nobody's interested in that. We're only ever going to talk about short sleep, not long sleep, not the dangers of long sleep. So this is why, as I say, my book, it cuts through the nonsense. It's written in exactly the way I talk. People who know me and have listened to me say that it sounds like the way I talk, because it is, because I had 8 weeks to write it, and it's not flowery language. There's no references in it. If you reckon that you're going to improve your sleep by finding a reference in a popular science book and looking that reference up and reading it and understanding it, and that is the thing that's going to make you get a better night's sleep, then you have a very perverse idea of how to get a better night's sleep. So there are no references to get in your way. There are no footnotes. I tell you what you need to be told. I tell you in a very simple way what you need to be told. I tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And to be honest, I don't care whether my book is a success. I don't care whether you buy my book or not, because that's not the point of writing the book. It's not designed to be a tutorial. It's not like these self-help books. You know, there's a myriad. Sleep better in a month, sleep better in 21 days, sleep better in a week, sleep better in a weekend. Well, how can they all be true? How can they all actually get you better in sleep in that time? Because they're all giving you the same advice. They're all giving you cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. That's all they've done. They've rewritten it. They've claimed it to be their own. So it's either the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is good, but you don't need to buy multiple books about it, or if they've written something themselves, if they've come up with some advice themselves, it's probably rubbish. It's probably nonsense that actually has absolutely no scientific basis at all. So this is the problem. I've just seen Emmanuel Mignon reckons that sleep big data is the way forward. It absolutely is not the way forward, because loads of really, really inaccurate data doesn't become accurate data. This is the big fallacy. You see these surveys, oh, Fitbit have analyzed 14 billion nights. Yes, they have, but it's inaccurate data. And there is no way that having 14 billion nights of inaccurate data makes accurate data. It just means you become statistically significant because you have so much data, but it is rubbish data. And I'm old enough to remember when computers first came out into the laboratory, and writing things on computers, and there was always the phrase rubbish in, rubbish out. And that is what we're getting with big data. We're getting rubbish put into algorithms, analyzed to death, and people reporting results to 3 decimal places when the margin of error is massive and totally nullifies that data. The same with wearables. Everybody's saying that AI is the future, we'll be able to do this, that, or the other. We won't. It won't work because our reference point, which is how to stage sleep according to Rex Sharfman and Kales, or now the American Academy of Sleep Medicine staging baseline guidelines, is actually a false reference that cannot be used by AI. So AI will actually not ever be able to stage sleep. You cannot do it from a wearable or a nearable. It won't work because the way we have defined sleep isn't a way that it's going to lend itself to nearable, wearables, or AI. AI can only learn on the basis of the information that is given. If the information is rubbish, then you will get rubbish out of it, and that is what is happening. These devices are producing nonsense information, but everybody's seduced. They're neophiles. They're seduced by the novelty of the measurement techniques, or they're seduced by the idea that you can get millions of points of data. And the thing is, wearables, big data, the only people who wear Fitbits and Garmin are white middle-class people in America who don't have a sleep problem. The minute you put a wearable on somebody with insomnia, any accuracy goes right out the window. So we're collecting information from white middle-class Americans and then extrapolating that to the world. This is nonsense. I read an advert on LinkedIn yesterday. It said 50% of the world's population have poor sleep. This is from a survey done by a company called Wakefield Research for Princess Cruises. They surveyed 1,000 people in 12 countries, and they say that 50% of the world's population has poor sleep. That's nonsense. That is so far away from the truth as to be laughable. And yet an advert for some funky pajamas that cost stupid amount of money is using this information as though it were some truth that we are all desperate to get a better night's sleep, and spending $180 US on a pair of pajamas is somehow going to make us sleep better. It is all just a sham to monetize, to take your money off you. And as I say, I feel guilty that I'm asking you to buy my book and therefore taking my money off you. But it is cheap. It's $10.99. And I'm sure Amazon have it on special every once in a while. So that. The good thing about publishing for Wiley is that I never get to see my book remaindered. It will never be in the remainder shop. So I'll never see it for £5 because nobody's bought it. So that's one good thing about publishing with Wiley. That was a rant. So, I mean, I spent 25 minutes ranting at you. If any of you've got a question, then please feel free to ask a question. If not, I can carry on ranting at you if you want. But anyway, buy my book, learn the truth about sleep and about how you should get a good night's sleep and why you should get a good night's sleep, because it's about living better tomorrow, feeling happier, healthier tomorrow. That's what the book's about. It's not trying to sell you any rubbish. It's not trying to lecture you. Don't avoid chocolate. Chocolate's got caffeine in it. Absolutely. If you eat dairy milk chocolate, in order to get the same amount of caffeine from Cadbury's dairy milk as you would do from a cup of coffee, you have to eat 1.5 kilos of chocolate. Now, if you do that before bed, do you think it's the caffeine that is stopping you from sleeping, or the 1.5 kilos of chocolate that you have just eaten? If you eat white chocolate, you can eat that till your cows come home. It's not going to disturb sleep. Dark chocolate, it's about 150 ml bar of dark chocolate. Or avoid alcohol. Really, seriously, that's Puritanism. alcohol's been the best and most used way of going to sleep. Of course, it disturbs the sleep in the latter part of the night if you drink enough. But a small nightcap has never done anybody any harm. If you're drinking half a bottle of Tesco's value scotch each night, then yes, you'll have a sleep problem. But I would suggest you also have many other problems that you need to address. So there is just puritanical rubbish to sell you herbals or potions and lotions and this and that in order to get sleep. You don't need any of it. Bedroom conducive sleep, relaxed body, quiet mind, that's all you need for sleep. Costs nothing, do it tonight. Any questions?
Cool. Thank you so much, Dr. Stanley. While everybody types their questions, I just wanted to let you guys know about our next talk, which will be Dr. Buise. So more detail will be available on our website. So just keep an eye on our website, please. Thank you. So in terms of the questions, I have quite a few questions. So I'll kick off with one of our attendees' question, which is Angeli. She says, "Hello, Dr. Stanley. Would you you speak of sleeping better in terms of insomnia. I would like to know about how to sleep better in terms of the quality of sleep as opposed to sleeplessness. What are your thoughts on getting more restfulness from the same number of hours of sleep? So better sleep quality."
Yeah, I mean, better sleep quality. I mean, essentially, sleep is quantity and quality. So I say there's no magic number of hours to get a good night's sleep. It's about what you need, and then you need to give yourself that opportunity to get that sleep. And then, if all things are equal, your body will get the sleep that it needs, and both in terms of the stages of sleep and the amount of time that you are asleep. Consolidating that into a single period at night is the optimal way of sleep. Now, you may have heard this idea that in pre-industrial times, we slept in two separate periods during the night, first sleep and second sleep. If you look on my website, thesleepconsultancy.com, I have completely trashed Professor Eckersh's idea about first sleep and second sleep. It doesn't exist. It's not in the literature. It's made up. It's a fallacy that he's, again, been promoting, but it doesn't exist. I have gone through every single reference that he quotes, and I quote the actual information rather than the stuff he's made up and the misquotes and the words missing, etc., etc. But I say it's about getting a consolidated period of sleep. Once you've done that, if you aren't disturbed, your body will get the sleep that for your age and your health you are designed to get. Can you improve the quality of sleep? More than that, not really. Slow wave sleep, stage N3 sleep, is the most important part of sleep, but there is very, very little way of improving slow wave sleep. If you sleep, you'll get the slow wave sleep you can get. There are a couple of medicines, but only two that I'm aware of, one of which is because I discovered it, that does have a positive effect on slow wave sleep, and that's pregabalin and its sister compound gabapentin. They do increase slow wave sleep. But other than that, all you can do is achieve what at your age and your sex and your health can achieve. So getting a consolidated, undisturbed period of sleep means that your body will get the sleep that it needs in the quantity and the quality that it can.
Thank you so much. And a very nice follow-up question from Janal. He says, what if we get too much sleep? Is there any problems with getting too much sleep?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
think
what your body wants is consistency. It wants you to have a consistent period of sleep, whatever that may be, what works for you and what allows you to feel awake, alert during the day. Too much sleep will throw off your circadian rhythm. And the point of fixing your wake-up time 7 days a week, 365 days a year, is that you actually start waking up about 90 minutes before you actually wake up. So your body and brain are starting to prepare to wake up. Now, if you tell your body and brain that you'll wake up at 7 o'clock every day. One, that becomes a habit, and two, your body and brain can prepare to wake up at 7 o'clock each day, and so you hit the ground running when you do wake up. If your body and brain has no idea when you wake up and you feel what we call sleep inertia, which is that grogginess, a lack of get up and go that some people can suffer from for sort of 15 minutes to 2 hours in the morning. And of course, if you feel groggy when you wake up, that's possible that you take that feeling of grogginess through the day and you feel sleepy, even though actually you don't have any sleepiness, you do feel sleepy. Because of that grogginess. So sleeping too much is as bad as, say, from a medical point of view, as sleeping too little. And what your body wants is that consistency. So I say even sleeping in at the weekend, that's not beneficial. That's not catching up on the missed sleep. That is a stress state because you have abused your sleep during the week. And it's a stress state that you need to make up. So as I say, consistency, fixed bedtime is the most effective single change that you can make to your sleep.
Yeah, so I think you partly answered the next question as well, which is about, for example, if you have sleep disturbances one night, can you, and you have some sort of a rebound the other day, is that good? Or
yeah, I mean, if
you
know, the Americans have a wonderful phrase, if not tonight, then tomorrow night. If you have a bad night's sleep tonight, probably tomorrow night you'll have a good night's sleep, because if you miss any of your deep sleep, you will make up that missed deep sleep and about half of your rapid eye movement sleep. So if you were to totally sleep deprive yourself tonight, you would make up all of your deep sleep that you missed and half of your REM sleep. And this is why when you've had a very, very disturbed night, the next night you sleep like a log. Essentially, you don't move. You literally die for 8 hours and you don't move. So you can make up one poor night's sleep. You can make up partially 2 poor nights sleep, but once you get past that, you're in a sleep debt, and you can never pay back your sleep debt because it's impossible to get more than 100% slow wave sleep. It's not the way it works. So people who say, oh, I can abuse my sleep in the week and at the weekend I can sleep in, that's like saying I'll eat McDonald's all week and then I'll eat lettuce at the weekend. Is that a healthy diet? Of course it's not. You've done the damage, and eating lettuce at the weekend isn't going to improve that. So you need to get a good night's sleep each and every night. I say one bad night's sleep doesn't mean that you've lost the ability to have poor sleep. You probably sleep well the next night.
Cool, thank you so much. So from what I understand, you can catch up a certain amount of sleep, but then it's called sleep debt. So you have some sort of a debt.
It's lost. It's gone.
Yeah.
You never make it up.
Cool. So there are a few questions who are wondering about more of the structure of sleep. So there are actually 2 questions about the structure of sleep. One is a bit more general about the general sleep cycles, deep sleep and shallow sleep. And then the follow-up question is about if we wake up from deep sleep, is that also very detrimental? And then a third question is, how does the body keep track of missed slow wave sleep or missed deep sleep? I think these
fine, that's fine. Essentially, within 20 minutes of you switching the light off, you should fall asleep. You'll then quickly go through the light stage 1 sleep, which is the transition from awake to asleep, which makes up about 3% of the night. You'll then go into stage N3 sleep, or slow wave sleep. This is going to be a consolidated period of around 60 to 90 minutes. Then you'll have your first dreaming period that may last 5 minutes long or so. Then you'll go back into some more deep sleep. And then on a roughly 90-minute cycle, you'll have your REM periods. Your REM periods may be 45 minutes long, and they're interspersed with lighter stage 2 sleep. So stage 2 sleep makes up 50% of the night, which you'd think would mean it's very important. Probably is, we just have very little idea why. We have about 25% of deep sleep, 25% of REM sleep, and as I say, a little bit, a smattering of this stage 1 sleep. Now, you are preferentially designed to wake up during REM sleep. So if you woke up this morning without an alarm, you'll have almost certainly woken up during the dream. And if you got up to pee during the night, I can pretty much guarantee it was around 3 to 3.5 hours and around 5 hours, because that's when you're having the REM period. And I say you're preferentially designed to wake up at that time. Now, if you wake up during deep sleep, you'll get what we call a confusional arousal. This is where you wake up and you think, who am I, where am I, what am I doing? Because slow wave sleep is designed to be protective. Slow wave sleep is the most important part of sleep. It's when the brain does its housekeeping. It's when the brain's activity reduces by about 25%, and you lay down memories, you learn new behaviors, you actually only ever physically grow during deep sleep. And we know that also your brain washes itself during deep sleep. Every 20 seconds during deep sleep, your brain expands and contracts, sucking up cerebral spinal fluid into the gaps, washing out neurotoxins that have built up. So that's what's happening in deep sleep. So you don't want that process interrupted. So if you wake up during deep sleep, you will feel much, much worse, and as I say, be confused about what is happening. The slow wave sleep is as I say, a fundamental part of sleep, and essentially because of its importance in laying down memories and learning and that sort of thing, the brain needs it. And so if you don't get it one night, the brain will make it up the next night. And actually, I've done many sleep deprivation studies whereby, or slow wave sleep deprivation studies whereby you actually have to in the night, in real time, stop somebody entering deep sleep, and it is incredibly difficult. We were playing tones into their bedroom that, from a health and safety point of view, you could only listen to for 5 minutes. It was that loud, and it was still not taking people out of deep sleep. So that desire, that need for deep sleep is very, very important. About sleep cycles, there is a particular ex-mattress salesman now claiming to be the sleep coach to the stars, who claims that we need to sleep in 90-minute sleep cycles. There is no such thing as a 90-minute sleep cycle. Right from the very start, when we identified sleep cycles, they range from 37 minutes to 104 minutes. The average time of a sleep cycle is actually 95 minutes, if you want to go for that. So if you sleep in 90-minute cycles, by the end of the night, you're 25 minutes out anyway. So there's no such thing as a 90-minute sleep cycle. Sleep is vastly more dynamic than that. It doesn't happen in simple blocks. You may look at the output from a Fitbit and see simple blocks, but that's not what sleep experts would actually ever see in sleep. So the 90-minute cycle is a complete pile of nonsense. So you can easily discount that. It's roughly 90 minutes, but you really wouldn't want to set your alarm on the basis of that. So I think hopefully that's answered all three parts of the question.
Yeah, and there are also follow-up parts as well. So you talked about sleep cycles. Then should we be? Is there? Do you have any recommendations for naps? To nap or not to nap was the question.
I mean, of course, this is in the papers today because Boris is having naps, and it shows a particularly British sensibility that we are condemning Boris somehow for wanting to nap. If that was the Prime Minister of Japan, it would not in any way make the news, because in Japan you have inamura, which is the ability to nap in a public situation without a problem. Nobody would censure you for it. So if you have a 20-minute nap, the so-called power nap, yes, that will boost your performance by up to 25%, and that performance boost will last 3 to 4 hours, which is vastly better than you would get from having some caffeine. Caffeine will take 30 minutes to work and boost your performance for about 30 minutes. So if you are sleepy during the day, what your body wants is sleep, and that's what a nap is. Sleeping more than that will use up some of your sleep need. And that means you'll sleep less at night, which means you'll think you have a problem, which means you have to have a nap in the day because you've got a sleep problem, which means your sleep at night will be worse, which means you have to really nap during the day to make up for the deficiency in your sleep at night, and you've got into a vicious circle. So a power nap, absolutely fine. More than that, it will, say, disturb your sleep, and we should probably avoid it. Certainly, as I say, if you've got insomnia, you would want to avoid napping.
Cool, thank you so much. And talking about like good sleep habits, there are two questions about poor sleep habits as well. So Yuri, this asks first, is it acceptable or good to spend 20 to 40 minutes in bed before getting up every morning? Or should we be really getting up fairly quickly?
Well, it depends. You know, if you feel awake, alert, you know, fully refreshed after your night's sleep, then get up. There's no point lying in bed. Seize the day, learn Spanish, take the dog for a walk, knit blankets. It doesn't matter what you do. Lying in bed, I mean, you know, there was a whole thing between the 18th and 19th century. There was this whole condemnation of people who lay in bed, sluggards. John Wesley, the leader of the Methodist Church, was a massive advocate of early rising, said basically that you'll just turn into a huge ball of fat if you lie in bed too much in the morning. It was a great thing, the early rising movement. So yeah, I mean, if you wake up on a morning like today where it's cold and miserable and wet and you haven't got any reason to get up, then there's no reason necessarily for you to get up. If you're relaxed, if you're not trying to go back to sleep, if you're comfy and you're relaxed and you're thinking happy thoughts, then fine. If you're lying in bed thinking, oh, woe is me, life's rubbish, then of course get up and do something else.
Yeah, and the follow-up question is, if you have poor sleep, have consistent poor sleep, for example, if you get sleep very late for a long period, what are the detrimental effects? Because you mentioned that they were
Yeah, I mean,
not a lot.
The sleep effects that you're going to get are happening the next day. So your reaction time will be slower, your memory will be poorer, your problem solving will be affected, you'll carry out more risky behaviors, your sense of humor will be reduced, you'll feel more pain, you'll have more arguments with your partner and your work colleagues, you'll have less empathy for people, you won't be able to read people's body languages or understand their tone of voice, so you'll get upset with them. You won't want to make up the fights that you have. You're 4 times more likely to catch the common cold. You're more likely to have a car accident. Those are the things that will happen. We all know that. We all know that we're rubbish when we've had a bad night's sleep. Longer term, as I say, this idea that you'll die. Now, we do know that you'll eat more sugary and fatty foods, and if you improve sleep, you'll actually cut down your intake of sugar. So there are things like that. So poor sleep can exacerbate type 2 diabetes, and controlling or improving your sleep can reduce diabetic the management of diabetes. We know that there's a bidirectional link between insomnia and depression and anxiety. So if you have insomnia, you're 10 times more likely to develop major depression. But if you have depression, you're likely to have insomnia. So improving your sleep will improve your mental health, and having poor sleep will impact your mental health. But I say it's all about tomorrow. It's not about the long term. It's about feeling better tomorrow. That's why we should be getting a good sleep tonight, not thinking that we'll live longer.
Cool, thank you so much. And there are 3 questions about the pharmacology side. So one thing, the first question from Abhishek asks, maybe we should be conducting research into herbal supplements that would help sleeping, help entering sleep.
I mean, there was one particular drug company, a Swiss drug company, that has people traveling around the world, going to indigenous tribes in various countries, saying, "What do you take? What does the medicine man give you? Which plant?" And they're taking them back to Switzerland, and they're trying to find out what the hell's in them. There is some evidence for valerian, but that's the only herb that we have any evidence for beneficial effect on sleep. Other herbal remedies may be beneficial for sleep because they're anxiolytic, they reduce anxiety, and of course, a quiet mind, anxiety is part of an unquiet mind. So that may be something that we should be looking at. Yes, you know, there is a gap where we don't know about, you know, what these herbals do, and maybe the problem is, of course, you know, there's no money to be made. You do a clinical trial on herbal, and somebody else, you can't patent that herbal, so somebody else can flog it on the back of your research. That's why it's not done.
Mm-hmm. So the same person asked about modafinil,
Modafinil, yeah.
Yeah, modafinil. Sorry, I'm not familiar with the drug. Can you talk about?
Yeah, modafinil is a drug. Its brand name is Provigil. It was developed by the French for the military and used by the American military, but it's licensed for daytime sleepiness in narcolepsy. It's a wake promoting agent. The company who owned Modafinil tried to extend its brand into daytime sleepiness from any cause or from sleep apnea. Now, we actually have no idea how modafinil works. We have no idea. The mechanism of action of modafinil is actually a complete mystery. It's the first drug that was ever licensed by the FDA without a known mechanism of action. The US military use it, or they try to use it, but the pilots don't like it because it doesn't give you the buzz that amphetamine gives you. So actually US military pilots are using amphetamine rather than modafinil, which is really quite worrying. And it has got this idea that some of the brightest students in the world, people at Oxford and Cambridge, are dumb enough to use it as a drug of abuse to be able to stay up and write essays. These people are what we scientists call absolute muppets. Yes, it is a wake promoting agent. If you have narcolepsy, if you don't have narcolepsy, you shouldn't be using it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And the other question about drugs is, so there are novel antidepressants that target sleep, and the person gives
Agameltine.
Yeah.
Yep, Agameltine. Yeah, and very interesting Agameltine, the story of Agameltine, because it is, as they say, it's the most antidepressants have a negative effect on sleep. So the SSRIs, the SNRIs are alerting drugs. So for instance, Prozac actually causes insomnia in 26% of people who take Prozac. So Agameltine is very, very interesting because it's based around melatonin as a melatonergic drug. And what has happened in people with depression is not that they have poor sleep, it is that their sleep has changed its timing. So they basically miss out the first sleep cycle. So they go into sleep in a strange place, and their temperature nadir, the lowest point of their temperature, and their cortisol rhythm are shifted. And so because Agameltine works on the melatonergic system, it can actually realign sleep into a better time. Because one of the cardinal signs of depression is early morning awakening, because you've had your 4 sleep cycles, not your 5 sleep cycles, and then the body doesn't need any more sleep, so you wake up. So Agameltine shifts your sleep. It's not a hypnotic. It doesn't put you to sleep. It doesn't keep you asleep. It shifts your sleep into a more natural time, therefore giving you that additional sleep cycle, and therefore that improves sleep. So yes, Agameltine is, as I say, as the person asking the question, it is a novel drug, and it does, unlike any other antidepressant, have a direct effect on sleep. Now, other antidepressants like paroxetine, mirtazapine, trazodone, trimipramine are used for sleep, but that is because doctors don't want to use sleeping tablets, not for any medical reason, but because of dogma. They've been told not to do it by Medicines Control, not because of any medical reason, but because that's just the way the NHS views sleeping tablets. Now, the other antidepressants, although they're given, actually there is no evidence of any beneficial effect for insomnia. But say Agameltine does have that unique mode of action.
Cool. And something, a question that so I'm a bit conscious of time, but a question that I'm also a bit curious is you said that a few or many sleep-related businesses are not scientifically based. Do you have any examples of the opposite side, on the opposite side, where what do you think future sleep businesses should be based on?
I don't think that I don't think there is really a place for business in sleep. Sleep is a natural product. Um, you should no more sell something for sleep than you should sell something for fresh air. Um, you know, it's a natural process. You do it anyway. You don't need to buy something to help you sleep. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is the #1 first-line treatment now. So things that do cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, apps or digital, there is a place for that. Wearables will never accurately measure sleep. That's impossible. The technology won't work. Nearables, the same. Single channel EEG won't work because it doesn't reference back to Rechtschaffen and Kael's staging algorithm. Your lotions and potions, your pills, your supplements, no evidence that they make any difference to the brain's chemistry, so they're not necessary. Having somebody, Stephen Fry, reading a story about walking through a lavender field, you may find Stephen Fry intensely annoying. So that's not going to help you sleep. I hate the smell of lavender. So a lavender pillow is going to nauseate me, not allow me to get a good night's sleep. So I think business should actually stay well away from sleep. I mean, you know, mattress sales, mattresses are about comfort. If you are comfortable, you'll sleep better. But to claim that a mattress makes you sleep better, you don't have the evidence for that. You have evidence that comfort or discomfort makes you sleep worse. So as I say, the claims are all based on marketing. Very few of them are based on science. And I published a paper 1996 called The Future of Sleep Staging. So this is long before computerized sleep staging became a thing. And I showed you in that paper that it will never work and it will never be accurate. 25 years later, with the I mean, I used to have the computer I had in those days had 108 megabytes of memory. That's what it was. That's how crap it was. I used to have to do an Excel spreadsheet calculation, set it off at 5 o'clock and come back in at 9 o'clock in the morning for it to work. And that was a 252 columns of Excel spreadsheet. I showed that it wouldn't work. And 25 years later, with AI, with all of these technological advancements, it is no more accurate than it was 25 years ago, which is completely inaccurate. And it will not ever get more accurate. It cannot do that because of the reference that we use to judge. That is a false reference. It's not like the meter or the kilo. We don't have a defined sleep. It doesn't exist. So we don't have a reference to measure against. So business has no place in sleep at all.
Yeah, so I'm just conscious of time, and I'm gonna ask one last question. Apologies for the questions that we haven't answered. If there's any questions that you are really attached to, please visit our website, internationalsleepcharity.org, and post your question there, and we could relate them.
I'll answer any questions that people want to send through, no problem at all afterwards if I ramble too much. But anyway, let's do the last one.
Yeah, the last question is, so you casted a lot of doubts on sleep measuring platforms or devices or machines. What do you think of questionnaires?
Well, absolute questionnaires, brilliant. If you have a sleep problem in Germany and you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, I've got a sleep problem, he'll ask you one question. And that question is, how do you feel during the day? And if you say, I'm alert, awake during the day, he'll say, you haven't got a sleep problem. That's it. If you want to know how somebody slept, ask them, how did you sleep? Oh, I slept well, fine. That's it. You don't need anything more. A subjective assessment of sleep is as inaccurate as a sleep tracker, but it's a damn sight cheaper. So yeah, questionnaires. If you want to measure change in sleep over time, use the Lead Sleep Evaluation Questionnaire. If you want to measure daytime sedation, the Epworth Sleepiness Scale or Karolinska Sleepiness Scale, you know, they're very simple things that are just as accurate as anything else that you want to do. Circadian, the artificial melatonin that was developed in Israel, that got FDA approval simply on questionnaire data using the LSEQ. There was no polysomnography done in the development of that sleeping tablet. It was all done using questionnaire data because the FDA recognized that it is, as I say, as accurate or inaccurate. But if you show change, then, and you show a significant change, then that's it. So questionnaires, absolutely. And as I say, if anybody wants any advice on questionnaires or how to design clinical trials or research projects, feel free to contact me, because I've done, let's say, over 250 of them. I know the questionnaires, and I'm more than happy to help anybody who's got any questions about sleep, rather what I've said or about anything more. Feel free to contact me as mentioned, and I'll happily help.
Cool, thank you so much. So on this note, on the note of questionnaires, our next talk will be by Daniel Brise, who's who's invented or validated one of the most widely used questionnaires on sleep. So looking forward to you guys joining our next talk. So I just wanted to thank you again, Dr. Stanley, for speaking to us.
Pleasure.
And have a great night of sleep.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure. Thank you.